Hi, welcome back. We're playing Italy and I'm just walking through all the tabs. In the last one, I went through the decisions tab. I'm going to skip the intelligence agency tab for now. If you have the resistance, you'll have it. If you don't, you won't have it. It'll just go from this one straight to research. So this is the research tab, and the research tab allows you to pick your text that you want to learn. It tells you what benefits you're getting. So we have currently a 1% increase in the amount of research that we're gaining, and that's due to our export decision, which is back over here. We have limited export selected, and as you can see, it gives research speed 1%. So that's basically telling us what that is doing over here. If we had other techs benefits for certain specific types, they would show here. So for instance, if I had gone over here and taken this one and taken industrial, where we have a plus 15% to our industrial research speed, we would see that over here it would show plus 15% to industry. Now, we have 4 slots as Italy. So you can click this and it takes you to this screen, which has a bunch of dates and a bunch of texts, and they sort of progress from left to right as you're going by date. So earliest text stuff is 1918 all the way up to 1946. There's a bunch of different texts on each of the different tabs. So this is the infantry tab, this is the support companies tab, this is the armor tab, the artillery tab, the naval tab, the air tab, the engineering and electronics tab, and the industry tab. So let's go back over here. Green texts are ones that we have already. Gold texts are ones that we can research currently. You'll also notice that there's some gold ones that are in little tiny boxes. They're modifications to a particular one. So you don't see that so much here, but this one has it, and we'll see that in some of the other ones. So if you go and click on it, it gives you some information about it. It tells us that it's researched, that this is the Fiat 626 truck, that each truck costs us 1 rubber and 1 steel. It gives some information that their breakthrough value is 5, that their hardness is 10, their max speed is 12 kilometers per hour, reliability 80%, they use 1.2 fuel, and they cost 2.5 production points to build. There's also a wheeled suspension, which is used in No Step Back. It's not relevant in my particular game because I don't have access to that, but that tech is available in the Tank Designer if you've got No Step Back unlocked. And it allows you to use motorized infantry. It tells you that each motorized infantry battalion requires 1,200 manpower. It takes 90 days for them to train. They have a recovery rate of 0.3 org per hour, I think it is. Supply use, how much supply they use in 1 day. Suppression, how much they suppress local resistance. 2.2 is okay. Organization, they have an org of 60. Hit points, they have 25. And how much weight they are to be carried by convoys. So this is just information about motorized infantry. It also gives some information on their half speed in forest and 10% less attacking in forest. In mountains, they're 5% less attack. In urban, they're 10% less attack. Jungle, they're 50% less speed and 20% less attack. Marsh, 30% less speed, 10% less attack. River, 10% less speed, 10% less attack. And amphibious, so if they're naval invading, they have a 20% penalty on their attack value. So that's just information you can put your tool tag over to get an idea of what these things do. Carcano M38, it costs 2 steel to produce. It gives your units a defense of 22, a breakthrough of 3, soft attack of 6, a hard attack of 1. They move at 4 kilometers per hour on the ground. They have a piercing of 4, reliability of 90%, and they don't cost a whole lot to build. It's like half a production cost unit to build one of those. It also tells you for these ones, the yellows, how long it takes to research. So if we wanted to learn Support Weapons 1, it's going to take 148 days. If we were to take Improved Infantry Equipment 1, it's going to take 507 days. Now, the reason why it's going to take so long is we are in 1936. And if you'll notice, anything beyond the 1936 column has a penalty imposed on it. So like this one has 4 years ahead of its time, and the more ahead it is, the bigger the time penalty is. So this would take 1,087 days to research mechanized, or 507 days to research this one. Whereas these other ones, 198, 198, 198 to research paratroopers, special forces, 2 years ahead, so 603 days for that. This row effectively affects the defense and breakthrough values for your units. Most of them are for infantry and bicycles, cavalry, mountaineers, paratroopers, basically anything except the tanks. This affects their breakthrough and defense, and it just increases all the way along. Each one you have makes it progressively higher. These are the base attack values, and then in some cases it actually increases, like this one gives a 5% increase to the soft attack of certain types of units. Then there's this one which has a better unit, and then another one that has 5% increase over top of that value, and then another new unit, and then another 10% increase over that value. There's also some that break off, which allow an increase to hard attack and piercing by giving them anti-tank weapons. And anti-tank weapons 2 gives another 25% and another 100% to piercing, so it makes your units way more effective against tanks. Amtracs, mechanized, armored cars, and this is your Marines, and the Marines get better, you can get better, your paratroopers can get better, your mounted units can get better. This is special forces, which applies to any of these three. It could affect either you get more capacity with them, or you can actually have better ones, so they get better benefits and stuff. And that's this page. If we go to the next page for support companies, support equipment, you'll need that if you want to use any of these support companies, because every one of them requires some amount. Like for example, this engineer one, it requires 300 manpower to build an engineer, and it also requires, where is it? Training time, defense, hit points, org, entrenchment. It requires a certain amount of support units. I just don't happen to remember offhand what it is, how much it is. So yeah. So this is the engineer companies. Engineer companies typically have an effect. They allow you to move across forest quicker and increase defense in forest quicker. Increases defense in hills, increases defense in jungle, increases movement across marsh and defense in the marsh, increases your attack on forts and defense against forts, or defense in forts. It allows you to move across rivers quicker and defend across rivers better. And it allows you a 25% increase on your attack when you're naval amphibiing. Essentially, engineers are, they're there to build stuff, so building up defenses and building bridges, and that's why they allow your unit to move faster, is because when your unit comes to a river and they need to get across it, the engineers go out and break out the bridges, and they start building bridges so that your units can cross over, instead of having to like walk across or swim across or rope and rappel across. or do other ways. The engineers basically allow them to get there faster and allow them to defend and attack certain places better because they know structural weaknesses and things like that. So that's what the engineer companies do. Recon company, they typically will increase your breakthrough. This doesn't seem to show the values properly in here, but this is the effect that these units have. You'll see exactly what they do when you are in the template and you're adding them. But essentially they allow your units to move quicker and give you more information in battle, increase the recon value, which allows your generals to make better choices about what the enemy's doing, so you can take better tactics. Military police, if you've got this attached to your garrison units, it makes your garrison units suppression value better per battalion in the unit. So these are damn useful if you're going to annex places. Maintenance companies, they help increase reliability for equipment and for tanks and for trucks and things like that. So it allows them to not break down as often, and if they get damaged they can be repaired quicker, things like that. These two, you have to have research trucks first before you can take them, but this is a mobile hospital like a MASH, and it allows you to get more casualties back into your manpower. Like they're saved and they're not lost to your manpower completely, they actually come back and can be utilized because your doctors managed to save them and put them back out on the field. Logistics, this reduces the amount of supply that your units take. And then this last one, you have to have radio researched first, and then it allows you to have signal companies which allow your units to communicate better and have again better recon effect. They allow them to move into combat easier if they're in the reserves, things like that. This one, there's four general groups: the amphibious tanks, the light tanks, the medium tanks, and the heavy tanks, and the super heavy tanks. And then this one here is the modern tanks, which you can get by 1945. Unlike the other screens where they go across, these ones actually go down, and you'll notice that these ones have sub-ones underneath them. So you can go ahead and research this L3, which it's researched, and you could research a tank destroyer version of it, or you could research a self-propelled gun version of it. So this one has a manpower of 2, breakthrough 26, soft attack of 13, max speed of 10, not bad piercing of 10, 10 armor, 4 defense, 80% hardness, and allows you to use a tank unit like that. But if you wanted, you could go ahead and develop light self-propelled gun artillery, and this one doesn't have as much breakthrough but has way better soft attack. Still the same speed, still the same 10, not as much armor, less piercing, same reliability, less hardness, doesn't have as much armor on it, not as good defense, but basically it allows your soft attack value to go through the roof. So if you want to go against infantry, dropping a couple of these into your armor unit would be a good one. If you want to go against tanks, you want this one. Still same speed, soft attack is still low at 6, hard attack however is 10, and piercing goes up to 50, which most light tanks have an armor of like 10, so this will blow through it with no problem. So you can add these other units, and then there's also an anti-aircraft version if you want to have an air attack, so you can add these into your units as anti-aircraft armor. You can do the same thing with medium and medium tank destroyer, So maximum speed of 8, piercing of 88, armor of 60, whereas the regular tank has an armor of 60 and a piercing of 61. So 88 is quite a bit higher for that. Will easily pierce through the armor of 60. This travels the same speed as well. You'll notice that the light tanks are quicker than the medium tanks, at least in the early part. When you get up to here, they're up to 10 kilometers an hour, which is still not, like that's the same as this light one here. When you get up to the top, light tank 3 is 14 kilometers an hour. With buffs and things, you can get them up to like 20 kilometers an hour. It's pretty cool. These are the heavy tanks, very slow. But their piercing is pretty good and their armor is really good. So, you would use these against other tanks. Hardness 95%, or if you had to go against a position that was like heavily fortified, you would use them. But that allows you to kind of go through and pick the next one in the list. And as you can see, because it's 5 years ahead, there's a huge penalty, and that's why it's 1490 days. Artillery. So this column is the anti-air guns. Here's the artillery guns and the rocket artillery and the anti-tank. So the base artillery is this one, 10 defense, 25 soft attack, 2 hard attack, 6 breakthrough, 5 piercing is not particularly good, reliability 80%. So like this thing is going to bounce on most of the early tanks, but it does allow, you can use it as anti-air or as a small cannon when you're building tanks or ships. And this would be the anti-air improved version. It's got 4, breakthrough of 1, hard attack 7, soft attack 3, air attack 19. It allows you to use air attack 2 in your ships, and automatic cannons in your tanks, and basic anti-air guns as well. Basic heavy cannon unlocks anti-air on the ground, so you can build anti-air in your territories against bombers. So the main ones, the bigger ones, have base values, but these ones just give increases to the existing values. So it gives like a 10% attack, soft attack bonus to whatever one before. And the same with this one. This gives a bonus to it. This one gives a bonus to it. This one also allows you to go to rocket artillery, which then has one with a bonus. And then there's advanced, and there's the artillery 3, anti-aircraft 3, anti-tank 3. The anti-tank gun, low soft attack, high hard attack, high piercing. So putting that into your unit can increase the overall piercing. So it can be good if you want to, if you're expecting to go up against tanks, it might be a good idea to add like a support company of anti-tank into your division. So that's that. Let's go to naval. Yours might not have as many options. Because I have a DLC, it allows me to have tons of carriers and torpedoes and different armaments and things like that. Yours may be much simpler, but one that's down here that you would want to know about, depending on who you're playing, is you may need to research transport ships. You can't do amphibious invasions without this tech. This one gives you a naval invasion capacity of 10. You start with 0 without it, so if you want to do a naval invasion, let's say you're Austria and you go and you capture a port somewhere, you can't do naval invasions until you research transport ships. And then it'll allow you to do up to 10 units at one time. Once you get to this one, it adds another 40, so you can do 50 at a time, and then this one adds another 100, so you can do 150 units at a time in one giant attack. Although you don't get this tech until like 1944, so it's a ways off. Air, there's several types of units of air. There's the fighter type branch, the bomber type branch, and then there's the scout planes. Under the fighter type branch, there's the strike aircraft. So these are small, agile, kind of like fighter bombers. They're, strike aircraft, kind of like a Harrier or a Warthog. Like they're loaded with ordnance that they're using to, Stuka dive bombers and things like that. They're basically short-range bombers, and they're very agile. They can dogfight with fighters to get away. They're not as agile as a fighter, obviously, but they can hold their own a little bit in defense. These are the fighters. There's the interwar fighter in 1933, the Fighter 1, Fighter 2, Fighter 3. Then we get to jet engines, and you get to jet fighters in 1945 and 1950. Naval bombers. These are useful for bombing fleets and ports. So if you want to attack naval units, these are the ones you want to use. You can do it with tactical bombers, and you can actually send close air support to bomb planes as well, but their efficiency isn't as good because their range is usually too short. Because if they have to fly over a sea zone, they're going to run out of fuel pretty fast. These ones are made to work will last a little bit longer out there. Heavy fighters, these are fighters that are designed to intercept bombers. They tend to be more resilient to damage, but they're not particularly agile. So a fighter against a heavy fighter, the fighter has an advantage. It can fly circles around it, but these things can take a hit and keep on flying, and they do have pretty strong firepower. So if they manage to get the fighter in their sights, they can take it down quite effectively. But their main purpose is their longer range, and they can fly higher altitudes so that they can take down attack bombers and strategic bombers. This is the interwar version. Then there's tactical bombers here and heavy fighters, and then strategic bombers have their own separate track as well. Scout planes, these are used primarily for kind of seeing intelligence about what the other guy's units are. If you've got a scout plane flying over the area, you'll have better knowledge of what units they've got where their troops are situated, things like that you wouldn't necessarily see from being adjacent to them at the border. So that's what scout planes can do. They're also used occasionally in certain missions in the Resistance if you're using spies. Once you research jet engines, there are some jet fighters and jet attack bombers and jet strat bombers that become available to you. So this one is engineering. This track here is all about increasing research speed. This one is usually the first guy you're going to want because he gives a plus 3% research to everything, and it only takes 99 days, which is pretty fast. The next one up, 247 days, but that's because it's 1936 still, but it takes a long time to get that one. This one, 677, but that's because it's 2 years. If you wait until 1938, it's obviously going to cost a fair amount less. These ones that come off the side are the fire control systems, which are used with the Navy. So if you've got the ship designers, you can use those to help build better fire control systems for your ships. If you don't have some of the DLCs, it may have encryption and decryption text that'll show up in here as well. This column here has all about the radar. Here's radio, and then there's radar detection, decimetric radar, improved decimetric radar. And what radar does is it allows you to get a better interception ability of incoming fighters so that your fighters can engage and avoid combat when they're less advantageous to you. So if you see like a giant swarm of fighters coming and you think, we'll just stay in our bunkers right now and just let them fly, you can do that. Or you could use your radar to go, oh, well, we can guide them exactly which way would be the best way because they're going to fly over here, so we can cut in behind them and advantageously attack them from behind and cut them off. And that's the kind of benefit that radar does. It gives your air units better efficiency in their missions. As well, you have atomic research. You can't really do it till 1940. I mean, you could start now if you wanted, but it's going to take you 5 years to get it from 1936, so you wouldn't even have it until 1941, and it probably would not be that long after 1940 anyways. And experimental rockets and jet engines and rocket engines, which come out after that, and nuclear bombs can be developed, and nuclear reactors. So that's where all this tech is. And this is the meat and potatoes, the industry tab. This is all the techs about industry. Now, production efficiency cap. What that is that there is a maximum efficiency that you have, and it's called the production efficiency cap, that you have from your factories. There's always going to be a certain amount of inefficiency built into the system, waste and other things. So as you bring up your production efficiency cap, you can cap out at a higher level of efficiency and minimize waste and reuse parts and things like that. So this allows your factories to produce more at maximum efficiency. So it increases the amount of efficiency that they can get up to. When you start a new tech or a new equipment and you haven't put it, and you put your first assign your first factory to it to start building it, it starts at low efficiency and it has to slowly work its way up. And that's because, when they're first working all the different machines in order, they learn better ways to produce things quicker and which way to do this and that, and it increases the efficiency as more and more factories get put on it and over time. So slowly the efficiency goes up until eventually it caps out at the cap. So this column increases the cap, so it increases it by 10, this increases it by another 10, this increases it by another 10, by another 10, and by another 10 here, or another 10 here. So these ones, if you've got all 5, basically you're bringing your base level cap of 50 up to 100, and you've got full capacity quite quickly. This column increases the number of factories that you can have in any of your states. It also increases your factory output. So these two here, there's 2 different ones. There's dispersed industry and there's concentrated industry. Dispersed industry has plus 20% max factories in state. This one also has plus 20%. So they both have that in common. This one has a plus 15% factory output. This one only has a plus 10% factory output. This one has a plus 10% dockyard output, and so does this. So this one, you get more factory output from it because your factories are concentrated together. There's less efficiency in having to pass pieces, from one factory to the next. So they can actually be more efficient in building. The downside is that their bomb vulnerability is worse than this one. By dispersing them, they're not clustered together, they're harder to bomb, and as you'll notice, this one has factory bomb vulnerability of minus 15%, so it's actually less damage that they take because when you go after the bombs, their factories are further apart. They also have one thing too, they have a production efficiency retention. Normally when you're changing one factory over, so let's say you've got a factory and it's working on infantry equipment, and suddenly you just take it away and you go ahead and you assign it to light tanks. If the thing is similar, it allows it to carry over some of the efficiency. So if you go ahead and you go, I want to build this light tank and light tank 1 and I want to switch it to light tank 2, some of the efficiency can be retained. More of it can be retained with dispersed industry over concentrated. So that is one advantage here, is that if you are one to change how you're allocating your factories a lot, this column may be better for you because it allows you to keep more of your efficiency up, whereas when you use this one, you get a greater efficiency overall because your output's higher, but it loses more of its efficiency when you transfer and make changes. So those are what those do. This column is construction. Construction has an effect on how fast you build factories and how fast you build anything. So you've got your base rate. This one gives you a plus 10% increase to repairing and building things. This one gives you another 10% and another 10% and another 10% and another 10%. So if you've got all 5 of these techs, it gives you a 50% increase on your speed of building things. So it's definitely useful. These ones are excavation. This allows you to withdraw more resources from your territories. So it's basically, you know, better techs in digging into the ground and exploring for minerals and things like that. So you can actually, with excavation levels that are higher, it gives you more of your steel, more of your tungsten, more of your rubber, because you're better able to extract it. And then these also sometimes will open certain decisions and things as well. These 3, this one is the fuel refining. It's not that important. This first one you'll want because this allows you to increase your fuel storage. When you go to the building tab, there's an option to build fuel silos, and this tech gives you that. Fuel silos basically add an amount of fuel storage space equivalent to your base amount. So each fuel silo you have, basically, you know, the first one doubles. The next one is a 50% increase to your capacity. The next one is a 33% increase to your capacity, and so on and so forth, because it's basically, you've got 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you know. The secondary effect that these things have is, as you go down this line, when you convert your oil into fuel, you get more. So your fuel gain per oil is plus 20%, and your fuel gain from refineries is plus 10%. At this one, you get another 20% from your oil, another 20%, another 20%. So 1 point of oil may only get you 1 point of fuel at this point. And by the time you get to the bottom, it might get you like 10 points of fuel for that single unit of oil. So you can get a ton of fuel if you really need it by, you know, developing these techs down here. This one is synthetic. You can have synthetic oil. It allows you to build synthetic oil refineries, which allow you to basically create oil from waste materials. And there's also synthetic rubber processing, so it allows you to get synthetic refineries to produce rubber. So you can basically convert oil into rubber. So if you need rubber tires and you don't have an abundant supply like the Dutch East Indies or British Malaya do, or certain other places that like France has in Madagascar and stuff, you can go ahead and develop these techs and go ahead and build your own rubber that way. As well, you can build your own oil this way too with this one. I don't use this very much, but it is there as an option. And that's basically all of the research techs tab section. I'm just going to take us back to this screen. One more thing to note is you don't have to pick a tech. As each day processes and goes through, it will accumulate a day's worth of research, and it will get up to 30 points saved. Once it gets to 30, anything beyond that gets lost. So you can't save more than 30 days. But what this allows you to do is there's a way you can kind of rush a tech. So let's say I go ahead and I take, you know, this, speed up my tech one here, and I go ahead and take this one to increase my efficiency, and I go ahead and I take this armor, and I'm going to go ahead and use that. So those are the 3 techs. Now this one, I can just leave it blank, and what can happen is I can just save it up, and it'll go up 30 days. So I'll have 30 points stored in here. This one will go from 99 down to 69. This will go down to 118. This one will go down to 168. I can then go ahead and click on this one and pick a different tech. I can go ahead and take, let's go take this one. And what will end up happening is that other one will go away. And whatever the 30 days that were stored in it are still saved for that tech. So if I go over here and now pick it and go and pick this tech, it would drop another 30 days. So instead of 69, it would now say 39. So you can kind of use this as a way to rush a tech. You can only do it once though. So if you had something that's like 198 days and you went ahead and transferred that one over to another empty slot, and then had another one run out and then transferred it from that one to that one, it only brings it once. It doesn't bring it twice. So you can't rush it 60 days, you can only rush it 30 days. So that's just a nice little thing that you can do to increase your abilities. And that's the tech tab, and wait until the next video.